My wife, Sarah, and I went camping in the mountains to celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary. Everything seemed normal until she got a phone call. I learned later that it was from her first love, Mark. Almost immediately after, she rushed down the mountain. She didn't bother to say goodbye, she just got in the car and left me there. In the middle of the night, the weather changed drastically. A sudden, heavy snowstorm blew in. The cold air triggered my allergy-induced asthma, and I started having a severe attack. I tried calling her again and again, but she never picked up, not even once. I genuinely thought I was going to die alone on that mountain. After I was finally rescued and discharged from the hospital, I managed to find my wife, who had been missing for days. The very first thing she did was ask me for a divorce. She said, "Can we just get divorced for a little while?" She explained. "Mark was diagnosed with cancer and has less than a year to live. I want to be with him during his final days. After he's gone, I'll remarry you." She was even willing to sign over all her assets to me as a guarantee. I looked at the expressions on their faces, seeing the deep, suppressed history between them, and I agreed to sign the divorce papers. I realized my wife, Sarah, had been gone for about 20 minutes. Outside the tent, the wind was starting to howl, and it made my heart beat faster. I stepped outside and saw that the clear, star-filled sky we had earlier was now completely black. It was obvious the weather was about to turn ugly. Before we left, I had checked the forecast, and it was supposed to be clear for the next 2 days. But seeing the trees bending in the wind and feeling the sharp drop in temperature, I had a very bad feeling. I wanted to call out to Sarah, to tell her that we needed to get down the mountain immediately. But after searching around our campsite for a few minutes, I realized she was gone. I tried her phone, but I couldn't get a signal. Out here in such a remote area, I started to worry she might have had an accident. I didn't even have time to widen my search. The sudden cold air irritated my airways. My throat felt dry and incredibly itchy, and my breathing became shallow. I knew exactly what it was: an allergic asthma attack. I was just thankful that I had remembered to pack my medication. But as I frantically searched through the tent for my inhaler, I realized the bag containing my medicine was gone. And so was Sarah. Panic started to set in. I immediately dialed 911 and did my best to explain my situation and location. While I was waiting for help, I called Sarah dozens of times. She still didn't pick up. We had strung up a lot of fairy lights around the outside of the tent, which thankfully made it stand out against the dark landscape. The medical rescue team below was able to send up an inhaler using a drone first. When the rest of the team finally arrived, they carried me down the mountain and took me straight to the hospital. Her phone didn't finally connect until the next morning. A soft male voice answered, "Hello." I was confused. The voice sounded incredibly familiar, but I was too anxious to focus on it. "I'm looking for Sarah," I said quickly. "Is she there?" The man on the other end lowered his voice. "She was really tired last night and is still asleep. She can't come to the phone right now. Is there a message I can give her?" "Who is this?" I asked, feeling puzzled. "This is Mark." Mark. Sarah's ex-boyfriend. Hadn't he moved abroad during his junior year of college? And why were they together? My mind went completely blank. I couldn't understand how my wife, who was supposed to be camping with me just last night, could disappear in the middle of the night and end up with Mark. And Mark said she was really tired last night and was still asleep. My throat suddenly felt dry and tight. I couldn't say a word. When I didn't respond, he continued, "Should I have Sarah call you back when she wakes up?" I finally managed to force out a raspy question. "No, don't bother. When did she get there?" He paused on the other end, as if he was trying to remember. After a moment, he replied, "Around 2 in the morning, I think. I wasn't feeling well, so I called her, and she rushed right over." His tone was calm and casual, as if he were talking to a total stranger. I didn't believe for a second that he didn't know who I was. As far as I knew, my contact name in Sarah's phone was my husband. But it didn't really matter anymore. From the moment Mark answered Sarah's phone, our marriage was over. Lying in the hospital bed, I stared blankly at the ceiling tiles. I couldn't figure out how our perfect anniversary trip had suddenly turned into this. I had always prided myself on having a happy, loving marriage with Sarah. I knew she'd had a passionate romance back in college, and I knew her boyfriend at the time was Mark, the most popular guy on campus. But who doesn't have a past? They had broken up. There was no reason for me to keep dwelling on it. Besides, Sarah and I got together 3 years after Mark had moved abroad. Even if you were mourning a lost love, 3 years is more than enough time to move on. Now it just seemed I'd been blindly optimistic about our marriage. I was running a high fever, and the doctors were worried the asthma attack could lead to a lung infection, so they insisted on keeping me in the hospital for 3 days of observation. I used that time to call a lawyer friend and asked him to draw up divorce papers for me. If Sarah wanted to go back to her first love, I had no reason to stand in her way. 3 days later, I was discharged and went home. When I got back to our house, I tried to unlock the door, but the fingerprint scanner repeatedly failed. I tried the keypad code. That was wrong too. Frowning, I rang the doorbell. Sarah answered. The moment she saw me, her face clouded over with anger. "So you finally decided to come home? Where have you been the last few days?" She had the nerve to question me. "Where do you think I've been?" I scoffed. Sarah froze, seeming to recall the sudden snowstorm on the mountain. She fired off a series of questions. "You got down the mountain safely after it started snowing, right? You should have called me as soon as you got down. Why didn't you let me know you were safe all this time? Don't you know I was worried sick? And where exactly have you been these past few days? I've heard things online about how wild the camping scene can be. Were you with someone else?" Her words left me numb with rage. My head swam. I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 5 years. Before I could even think, I raised my hand and slapped her hard across the face. "Get the hell away from me!" The slap seemed to take all the energy I had. Afterward, I felt completely drained. I shoved Sarah aside and stumbled into the house. But when I opened the door, the scene inside made me freeze. Mark was lounging on our sofa, wearing a new set of my pajamas, casually eating fruit with a small fork. Sarah had actually brought him into our home. The world started spinning. His eyes were fixed on the TV as he said, "Sarah, I'm craving some hot cocoa. Can you make me a cup?" When he got no response, he turned toward the door. Our eyes met. Mark's hand, holding the fork, paused in midair. His expression shifted and he stood up. His face was a mask of awkwardness. "Oh, Leo, you're back. Come on in, it must be cold out there." I ignored him, trying to control the trembling in my body. Mark seemed oblivious to my state and just kept talking. "Leo, man, that wasn't cool. When did you and Sarah get married? You didn't even invite me to the wedding. I was pretty shocked when Sarah mentioned it the other day. I never thought you two would end up together, especially with all the guys buzzing around her back then." I had to laugh. In college, we were in the same club together, but we were barely acquaintances. There's no way he would have been on my wedding guest list. Sarah jumped in to explain. "Leo and I had a small wedding, just close family and friends. Besides, you were overseas. We couldn't ask you to fly thousands of miles just for our wedding." The man shrugged, non-committal, then suddenly gasped. "Sarah, what happened to your face? Did Leo hit you?" Then he turned on me. "Leo, that's way out of line. You're the one who's been out all night, not even coming home, while Sarah's been worried sick about you. And you come back and hit her?" At the mention of camping, Sarah's face darkened again. I looked at Mark and asked with a cold smile, "So, Mark, are you planning on getting back together with Sarah?" Mark froze. Then, like he'd been caught in a lie, he frantically shook his head. "No, of course not. You two are married. Why would I ever want to break up your marriage?" But his denial lacked any conviction. I pressed on. "If you don't want to break up our marriage, then who are you putting on this pathetic, innocent act for?" "Who's putting on an act?" Mark's face flushed. "Sarah said I was sick and insisted I stay here. You think I wanted to come?" I sneered. "Really? You two seem to be having a great time." Mark, his eyes red with anger, threw his fruit fork on the floor. Sarah's brow furrowed. "Nothing is going on between me and Mark," she said in a low voice. "You don't have to be so cruel." I raised an eyebrow. "What? You can do whatever you want, but I'm not allowed to talk about it? You think my words are ugly? I haven't even started on how ugly your actions are." Mark looked aggrieved. "Leo, don't go too far." I laughed. "Me? Going too far? You're in my house, sitting on my sofa, wearing my clothes, and you're telling me I'm going too far? Are you serious?" "That's enough." Sarah tugged on my sleeve from behind. But Mark had already stormed into the bathroom, slamming the door shut with a loud bang. I kicked off my shoes and walked straight into the house, barefoot. Sarah followed close behind me. I spun around suddenly. She couldn't stop in time and stumbled, nearly falling. I crossed my arms and sneered. "So, Mrs. Ford, planning on having your cake and eating it too? Making the husband and the new lover live under the same roof?" Sarah took a step back, flinching from my mocking gaze. "What are you talking about? Mark has stomach cancer. His wife divorced him, and he has no family left in the country, so I brought him here to take care of him. I was going to talk to you about it before he came over, but then you disappeared for days." I froze. Mark has stomach cancer. I pulled the discharge papers from my bag and threw them in her face. "Why didn't I come home? Because you snuck away in the middle of the night and abandoned me on that mountain. Because you took my emergency inhaler and I had an asthma attack and nearly died up there. You're asking me why I didn't come home?" By the end, I was screaming. Sarah held the hospital papers, her hands starting to shake. The memory of nearly dying on the mountain from the asthma attack flooded back. I remembered how, even as I was struggling to breathe, I was still worried sick about her. A wave of pure hatred washed over me. I raised my hand and slapped her again. This time, she didn't flinch. 5 red finger marks instantly appeared on her cheek. She pressed her tongue against the inside of her bruised cheek, her expression pained. "I'm sorry. Mark had a sudden stomach hemorrhage. He had just gotten back to the country and didn't know who else to call. I was in such a hurry I didn't even notice I'd grabbed the backpack on my way out. By the time I realized, I was already down the mountain." So I slapped her a 3rd time. She could have woken me up. She could have told me what was happening. We could have gone down together. Instead, she snuck away with the bag, took the car, and left me, alone on that summit. Hearing the noise, Mark rushed out of the bathroom and stood in front of Sarah, playing the protector. "Leo, if you're going to blame someone, blame me. I'm the one who called her. I had no idea you'd have an asthma attack, but hey, you're back safe and sound, right?" I let out a choked laugh. "Is attempted murder not a crime? Get out of my way!" I roared at him. Sarah's brow tightened. She pulled Mark behind her. "Leo, it was my fault. I left without telling you. I abandoned you up there. It's all on me. You can hit me, you can scream at me, but please don't hurt Mark. He's innocent." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the rage and grief inside me, but my hands were still shaking with anger. Mark's face was pale, and he looked incredibly weak. Sarah, maybe I should just go to a hotel. I don't want you two to fight because of me. Then he turned to me and apologized. I'm sorry, Leo, but there's really nothing going on between me and Sarah. I hope you don't misunderstand. What a performance. A cold smile played on my lips as I watched him. Sarah's gaze fell on me, her voice as cold as ice. We own this house 50-50. I'm not making Mark leave. It was a declaration, not a request. Mark's eyes lit up, but he still feigned reluctance. No, it's fine. Leo doesn't want me here. I don't want you two to... Sarah cut him off. There won't be any problems between us. You're staying right here. What if you start throwing up blood again in the middle of the night, like you did the other day? Are you going to count on a hotel clerk to get you to the hospital? Mark looked down, full of guilt. I'm sorry. I'm just a burden to you. They went back and forth, acting as if I wasn't even there. I pinched the webbing between my thumb and index finger, trying to clear my dizzy head. Sarah turned to Mark, her voice soft again. Mark, go upstairs for a bit. I need to talk to Leo. The man stammered, hesitating. He gripped her arm tightly. Don't fight because of me. I can move out any time. Don't worry. We're not going to fight. It's okay. Go on back to your room. Sarah soothed him patiently. I closed my eyes, exhausted. A wave of nausea rolled through my stomach. Mark headed for the second-floor bedroom, looking back every few steps. After the bedroom door clicked shut upstairs, Sarah turned to me. Leo, I need to talk to you about something. I clenched my jaw and said nothing. Sarah continued. Can we get divorced for a little while? Afraid I would refuse, she quickly explained. Mark's condition is really serious. He might have less than a year left. That's why I brought him here. I stared at her coldly, waiting for her to finish. You know, we had a relationship in college. Back then, I promised him we'd do so many things together, but we were just students with no money, so we never got to do most of them. Now that he's at the end of his life, he came back to fulfill his last wishes. I want to be with him and keep those promises. Sarah stammered through the explanation. Then silence. A long, heavy silence. I thought I must have misheard her. I never imagined I'd live to hear such a ridiculous, insane reason for a divorce. Seeing my lack of response, Sarah grew anxious. Don't worry, I'm just going to help Mark fulfill his last wishes, like family. After he's gone, and I've handled his affairs, I'll come back and remarry you. It turns out that when you're angry and speechless enough, you just start to laugh. What am I, some kind of doormat? I'm supposed to just stand by while she pours her heart out for her ex-boyfriend and then wait patiently for her to come back? No, I said, my voice firm. I don't agree. I had already drawn up the divorce papers, but seeing the desperate look on her face, I suddenly changed my mind. Sarah choked. Right on cue, a man's voice called from upstairs. Sarah, don't do anything crazy. I won't agree to what you proposed. He was leaning over the second-floor railing. Leo, don't listen to her. She's just worried about me, but I don't want to get in the middle of your marriage. I'll move out tomorrow. I scoffed. He didn't want to get in the middle of it. He already was. Downstairs, neither Sarah nor I responded, but Sarah seemed to have made up her mind. When she spoke again, her tone was cold and distant. Leo, our divorce would just be temporary, 2 years at most. As compensation, I can give you 10% of my shares in the company. My voice was even colder than hers, and I enunciated every word. I said no. A measly 10% of the company. This was my wife, the woman I had loved and been married to for 5 years. A relationship like that is going to cost you. I packed some clothes and toiletries and was about to leave with my suitcase. Sarah blocked the door, yelling at me, "Where are you going now? You just got back and you're leaving again. Who is out there waiting for you? I told you we're only getting divorced temporarily. Mark doesn't have much time left. Can't we just help him fulfill his last wishes?" I sneered. Fulfill all his wishes? If he wanted to go to the moon, would you send him there too? Sarah ran her hands through her hair in frustration. The problem is, his wish is just for me to keep the promises I made him. It's what I owe him. I had no idea you were such a woman of your word, I said sarcastically. If you owed him so much, why did you two break up in the first place? She paced back and forth. Leo, I always thought you were a reasonable person. I never expected you to be so cold and heartless. What's there to argue about with a dying man? She was throwing one punch after another at me, all for Mark. I watched her coldly as her anxiety mounted. I don't care about your past. I'm not agreeing to a divorce. If you want one, you can sue me in court. I decided to add more fuel to the fire. And by the way, I won't admit that our marriage has broken down, and I'm the non-fault party. Divorcing me won't be that easy. The lawsuit could drag on for a year or two. Sarah's mouth fell open. Then her tone turned pleading. It's just a temporary divorce. After we've fulfilled Mark's wishes, we'll get back together. If you're worried about things changing, besides giving you 10% of the shares, I can give you all of our marital assets. Even though I'd gotten the answer I wanted, my heart still ached. I let out a bitter laugh. I had to admit she really loved him. Fine, let's get a divorce. The woman in front of me finally let out a breath of relief. I pushed my suitcase out the door. This time Sarah didn't stop me. The cold wind bit at my neck, and I shivered. A sharp pain pulsed in my chest. Once outside, I clutched my chest and slowly sank to the ground. My stomach churned violently, and I started to dry heave. It was so laughable. 5 years of marriage, ending so abruptly like this. As I laughed, tears streamed uncontrollably from my eyes. 5 years of love, all gone to waste. I took my suitcase to my grandparents' old house. I rarely came back here after they passed away. There were too many memories. I just hired a cleaning service to come by regularly and tidy up. The furniture and decorations were almost exactly as they were when my grandparents were alive. I drew a basin of water and started wiping the dust off everything. I didn't stop until the sun was setting, collapsing onto the sofa. I stared at the photos of my grandparents and parents, lost in thought. In this world, I was truly alone. My parents died in a factory collapse when I was 3. My grandparents raised me. That night, I curled up on the sofa and slept soundly. When I woke up, my head was still foggy. I sat on the sofa for a long time before I realized where I was. I shuffled into my slippers and quickly washed up. I was standing on the balcony, staring blankly at the morning exercisers, when the doorbell rang. I lazily opened the door. It was Sarah, holding 2 documents. Was she so eager to bring the divorce papers that she was afraid I'd change my mind? I still sighed softly. Sarah held out the breakfast in her other hand, pan-fried buns and soy milk. I figured you'd be at your grandparents' place. I grabbed some breakfast for you on the way. You should eat. I took the breakfast with a blank expression and snatched the divorce papers from her other hand. Did you bring a pen? Sarah fumbled in her pockets and pulled out a black pen. Leo, thank you for understanding. Don't worry. Once I've taken care of things with Mark, I'll make it up to you. Make it up to me. How? Her face finally showed a hint of guilt. I flipped to the asset division section while eating. The division was clear. All marital assets were mine, including the house, cars, and stocks. She hadn't pulled any tricks. I picked up the pen and swiftly signed my name. There were 2 copies. I kept one for myself. All right, let's go to the courthouse after I finish. Breakfast. I ate quickly, almost wolfing down the food. Right now, I was afraid she would be the one to back out. Sarah drove me to the county clerk's office. We didn't speak a word the entire way. When we were filing for divorce, the clerk asked, "Have you both carefully considered this? And are you divorcing voluntarily?" Sarah and I both nodded. The clerk briefly glanced at the divorce agreement, then gave Sarah a long, meaningful look. She probably didn't see many wives who gave all their assets to their ex-husbands. "Here is your receipt. Please come back within the specified time to pick up your divorce decree, or you will have to reapply." Sarah took the receipt and let out a soft sigh. We walked out of the building, one after the other. "Sarah," I called out to her from behind. "What is it?" I asked the question that had been haunting me. "Why did you have to get a divorce? Couldn't you have just taken care of him in secret behind my back? With any luck, I might not have found out for 2 years. Sarah slowly turned around, her gaze deep and resolute. "I won't let him be morally condemned, and I won't let anyone gossip about him. He was never a third party. I'm divorcing you simply to take care of him as a friend. I have no intention of anything more happening between us. You can rest assured." So that was it. I thought what she said made sense. In that case, I could take her assets with a clear conscience. Between love and money, I had to get one of them. A month later, Sarah and I officially received our divorce decree. The house, cars, mutual funds, and stocks were all transferred to my name. I originally held 35% of the company's shares. With the 10% she gave me, my stake was now nearly equal to hers. I had helped her start this company 6 years ago. Looking back on the early days, it was a long, arduous battle against countless obstacles. We were short on seed money, and every decision felt like walking a tightrope. Buying office equipment, leasing space, R&D, market expansion. Every penny had to be counted. I'll never forget the feeling of being broke. We had planted the tree, but who would enjoy its shade was anyone's guess. I looked at the share transfer agreement in my hand. I began to hire brokers to help me sell off my shares in smaller, scattered blocks. Sarah's entire focus was on Mark now. I didn't trust her to manage the company well. Besides, I really didn't want any more ties to her. Turning the shares into cash was a good deal for me. The day after I got the new title for the house, I listed it with a real estate agent. Because the house was in a prime location and zoned for excellent elementary and middle schools, a buyer showed up quickly. I hadn't wanted to sell it, but the thought of Sarah and Mark living there made my stomach turn. The buyer was a businessman from out of town who planned to relocate his family. He was thrilled with the dual school district zoning. Plus, the house had 3 floors and a basement, offering plenty of space. He put down a deposit on the spot and asked the agent to prepare the closing documents. Before the sale closed, I went back to the house one last time, bringing a team of cleaners I'd hired. Sarah was shocked to see me show up with 6 people in cleaning uniforms. "Leo, why did you bring all these people here? I just had the house cleaned last week. It doesn't need it." I didn't even glance at her. I waved my hand and told the crew, "Clear out everything in this house that isn't built-in furniture. Throw all personal belongings out by the front gate." Then I pointed to 2 of the cleaners. "You 2 come with me and help me pack my things." Mark glared at me, his eyes burning with a look that could kill. Sarah's confusion deepened. "What are you doing? Why are you clearing everything out?" "Because I sold the house," I said slowly. Sarah was stunned. Why would you suddenly sell the house? Mark shouted, his voice a mix of shock and anger. This is Sarah's house. What right do you have to sell her property? This house is mine now, I said calmly. Whether I sell it or not is my business. Sarah grabbed my wrist and pulled me aside. Her grip was so tight I cried out in pain. She lowered her voice. If you sold the house, where will we live after we remarry? When did I ever agree to remarry you? A smile spread across my face. Sarah froze completely. I shook her hand off. I continued directing the cleaners to move all my belongings to the moving truck outside. Sarah finally seemed to grasp what was happening. She stood in front of me, furious. Leo, we're only temporarily divorced, I scoffed. Is there such a thing as a temporary divorce in the eyes of the law? A divorce is a divorce. Sarah was taken aback. Then her face slowly turned to ice, and she gritted her teeth. You set me up. My smile vanished. You proposed all of this. How can you say I set you up? Sarah stared at me, her face contorted with rage. My expression was cold. Sarah, from now on, you are you, and I am me. We have nothing to do with each other. She seemed unprepared for my decisiveness. Her mouth opened, but in the end, she didn't say another word. 2 months later, I had finished selling off all my shares. When Sarah found out, she called me, furious. Those shares were collateral. What right do you have to sell my company's stock? I had no interest in arguing with a fool. The shares are in my name. If I want to sell them, I can sell them. That's my right. She raged. Then why didn't you just sell them back to me? Do you have any idea how important those shares are to me? If someone else buys them, they can gain control over major decisions in my company. Don't you get that? Her shouting was deafening. I cleaned out my ear and replied calmly. The fact that I broke up the shares and sold them off piecemeal was already a kindness to you. You can easily buy them back from the new owners. Sarah took a deep breath. Are you that determined to destroy me? I already explained that the divorce was just to help Mark fulfill his last wishes. Do you have to be so unreasonable? Even if you're going to throw a tantrum, there should be a limit. What good does this mutually assured destruction do for you? I suspected there was something seriously wrong with her brain. What mutually assured destruction? The only one getting hurt was her. I didn't want to listen to her condescending lecture anymore, so I hung up the phone. Then I thought about it and blocked her number. Good riddance. Time flew by. Several more months passed. Sarah and I divorced in the dead of winter. Now the air was filled with the scent of sweet osmanthus. I stumbled upon a social media account. The profile picture was of Mark. Big data is eerily accurate. Even after deleting all their contact information, I still saw them on my feed. Mark's latest post was a video of him and Sarah kissing under the northern lights in Iceland. Although he was wearing a bulky, insulated jacket, you could still see that his face was rosy, and he was full of life. He didn't look like a sick person at all. I had to marvel at the life-giving power of love. Sarah, on the other hand, had lost a lot of weight and looked somewhat haggard. But what did that have to do with me? Unexpectedly, Sarah's company ran into a major crisis. While she was traveling the world with Mark, her CFO had embezzled tens of millions of dollars of company funds. She only discovered the problem when the bank froze the company's accounts. Apparently, the CFO's boyfriend had tricked her into embezzling the funds to invest in some jade mine, promising to return the money with interest in just 2 months. But the guy was a con artist. After the money was transferred to an overseas account, he disappeared. The boyfriend fled the country in a panic, but the CFO kept showing up to work, trying to tough it out until the scheme was exposed. Sarah reported it to the police immediately, but it was too late. All she could do was send the CFO to prison. The embezzled money was gone for good. Sarah was bankrupt. I found it all a bit tragic. But there was more. It turned out Mark didn't have stomach cancer at all, but a severe ulcer with symptoms that mimicked cancer. The first diagnosis was a mistake, but even after he was correctly diagnosed with an ulcer, Mark chose to keep the truth from Sarah. The only reason this came to light was because after 6 months of Sarah's diligent care and proper medical treatment, his condition had completely healed. Even a fool like Sarah could tell the difference between the complexion of a healthy person and that of a cancer patient. She took Mark for a checkup. After a full battery of tests, they found nothing wrong with him except for some mild indigestion. Sarah was ecstatic. Her grief over bankruptcy washed away. She posted several times on her social feed, declaring that late-stage stomach cancer is curable. Looking at the screenshots a friend sent me of her posts, I couldn't help but twitch. When did her brain break? Or was it always this bad? I had no way of knowing. Life's turning points are often unpredictable. Not long after Sarah's company filed for bankruptcy, she came to me asking to remarry. "Leo, Mark's illness is cured. I've helped him fulfill all his wishes. We can get married again now." I had a massive headache. Isn't it more like Mark went back overseas to find his ex-wife? So now you're crawling back to me? He had deleted or hidden all his posts related to Sarah. His latest one was a picture of a plane ticket with the caption, "Crossing mountains and seas to see you." He obviously wasn't going to see Sarah. She suddenly dropped to her knees in front of me. "Forgive me." "What? If I apologize, will you forgive me? From now on, I'll do whatever you say, just come back." She must have been drunk again. "I come back, and then what? Then we get married again, okay?" I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. "Sarah, do you think marriage is a game? You can just leave when you want and come back when you want? Who do you think you are?" Sarah's face was twisted in pain. She grabbed my hand. "Mark has gone abroad again. He won't be an obstacle between us anymore. I've deleted all his contact information." Tears welled up in her eyes. I could see she was truly remorseful. I forcefully pulled my hands away, my expression icy. Just as I was about to unleash a tirade on her, Sarah's phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID. The contact name was Mark. Who was it that just said they had deleted all his contact information? Sarah swayed on her feet, hesitating for a long moment before answering. Probably afraid I'd misunderstand, she put the call on speaker. After connecting, she gritted her teeth. "What? What other tricks do you have up your sleeve? Haven't you ruined me enough?" But a weak, crying voice came from the other end. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I failed you. It hurts so much right now." Sarah's face changed drastically. "What's wrong? What happened?" The phone seemed to be taken by someone else. "Hello, Ms. White. I'm a friend of Mark's. He was accidentally injured tonight by some thugs fighting on the street. A bullet went through his left abdomen." The person on the other end hadn't finished speaking, but Sarah was already shaking like a leaf. Then her legs gave out, and she collapsed to the floor. Sarah practically scrambled out of my place. A week later, Sarah sent me a message. Mark's ex-wife abroad found out, and broke up with him again. A month later, Sarah returned to the country with a weakened Mark. She didn't come to me to talk about getting married again. Soon after, a college friend sent me an invitation, full of confusion. "Leo, did you and Sarah get divorced? Why is she suddenly inviting me to her wedding? And with Mark?" I clicked on the invitation and zoomed in. I recognized the handwriting. It was all written by Sarah herself. I remembered when she and I got married, I was the one who wrote all the invitations. The difference between love and not loving is just that obvious. I went back to the chat and replied, "Yes, we've been divorced for over 2 years." My classmate didn't say anything else. He probably didn't know what to say. I used the money I had to open a boutique inn near a scenic area in a neighboring city where the local government was heavily promoting tourism. My inn covers over 100 acres and includes a coffee shop, a dessert bar, a kids' play area, a swimming pool, and more. Business is pretty good. Because of its unique design and management, it gradually became a popular spot for social media check-ins. I was so busy with work that I had forgotten most of the past. It was 2 years later that I ran into Sarah and Mark again. It was early in the morning, with a light, misty rain. To my surprise, I saw Sarah at the cemetery. I frowned, but didn't say anything. I didn't want to bring up our messy past in front of our elders. On the way down to the parking lot, Sarah spoke from behind me. "In the end, I was wrong. I failed you, and I failed our marriage." I didn't want to hear it. Besides, it was all ancient history. What was the point of bringing it up again? "It's in the past. I'm living a good life now, even better than when I was married to you." Sarah was silent for a moment, then said, "Mark and I divorced after less than a year of marriage." My steps faltered, and an unavoidable sense of sadness washed over me. This woman was as selfish as ever. "So you sided with your mother and divorced Mark?" My voice was filled with contempt. Sarah's face flushed with shame. "Mark was the one who asked for the divorce. His personality couldn't handle my mother's constant jabs and sarcasm. He's not like you. My mother didn't like him. Sarah, I really look down on you. If you had stood your ground and protected Mark, I might have respected you a little. But you're just disappointing. When I think about how I shared a bed with you for 5 years, I feel sick." Sarah tried to defend herself. "He betrayed me first. In college, he broke up with me without a second thought to go abroad. After he got better, he went right back overseas. To him, I was just a backup plan." I let out a sarcastic laugh. "See? That's why you two are a perfect match. It's a real shame you broke up." My sarcasm and disgust were probably too obvious. Sarah froze, as if pricked by a needle. She said, "I didn't know things would turn out this way. When he said he had terminal cancer, I just wanted to help him fulfill his last wishes. I never intended to actually divorce you for good." I kept walking. "How could you not know things would turn out this way? You just never imagined you'd end up in such a miserable state, right?" Sarah bent over in pain, as if all the life had been drained from her. She muttered to herself, "But I never thought you would actually leave me." I looked up at the sky and sighed deeply. I recalled our wedding vows, to be with each other for life, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. But in the end, who was the first to let go? After that, I never saw Sarah again. I did hear about her twice, though. Once, she crashed Mark's wedding and caused a huge scene. Someone filmed it and posted it online. It was like karma. No one came out of it unscathed. Later, I heard she got a job at a new company. During a negotiation with a client, they disagreed, and she smashed a bottle over the client's head. Someone who once stood at the top, how could they be willing to bow and scrape? But none of it had anything to do with me anymore. The river of time pushes us all forward. Its wheels roll on, crushing the memories of the past. We rushed off into different seas of people, never to cross paths again.